what it is, what's happening. So I'm back on the Cleveland. This is the 351 Cleveland that's going in the rat wrecker. So I thought I'd share a few things that was going on with this project. Since I had a couple people on some other forums ask me what's going on, what am I doing. So let me just lay it out real quick, make it simple and easy. I bought this motor a couple of years ago from a buddy of mine. It was 100% complete. When I say complete, I mean air cleaner, oil pan, fan, flywheel. It had the alternator on it. It had a power steering pump on it. Still had the belts on it, flywheel. Came with a starter, even came with a radiator. This motor was in a, I think it was a 54 or 55 Ford pickup. They were pulling this motor out to put a Stroker Windsor motor in it. This is a running motor. I bought it. Knew nothing about it. Nobody else really knew anything about it either. I bought it. It sat on a cart at the old house. I moved here, and now I'm getting fired back up to working on the tow truck. I decided to scrap the idea of putting the 7.3 in it. Decided to use this motor since I knew it ran. I had a video of it running. My buddy's a pretty reliable guy, so I thought let's use this motor. Other than it was a little greasy on the outside, like you could see the valve covers were leaking. It actually had a set of these cool old school Mickey Thompson valve covers on it, and they were oily, but I mean, you know, not bad. The back of the intake had a little bit of oil on it, so I thought let's pull it apart and let's reseal it. Well, as you saw in my last video, it was a sludged up mess. So I decided that I was just going to scrape the big stuff and vacuum it out, which I've done in the past with old boaters, and I've had, you know, good success. I'm trying to do this on a budget because I have so much other money to spend on the truck. And mind you, these projects that are here at my shop, these projects are funded by me. I still have other bills to pay and a life. Can't spend my whole paycheck on rusty old junk, but I do. So I'm trying to not spend $1 million on a full-blown rebuild. We know what happens when you take a motor machine shop. We're looking at crankshaft done, pistons done, you know, they got a board, all that. That adds up fast. I already got 500 bucks in this motor. I thought, let me spend another 150 bucks on gaskets and miscellaneous stuff. We'll be good. No, I get it apart, it's sludged. So I thought, I'll just pull the rocker arms and push rods and we'll clean that up. Well, these Cleveland motors, I'll use this push rod as a demonstration. These Cleveland motors, let me take you off the stand, I can show you better. The drains, your oil returns are right here. They go all the way down. All of them are plugged up. Now what happens is, I'm going to show you here, I believe this will go through, the oil drain, and you can see the push rod. So the oil returns go all the way through the block, one on the front, one on the rear. They're all plugged up. So I had to pull the heads on it. At that point I thought, well, as sludged up as the top of this motor was, I'm gonna go ahead and pull valve springs, replace the valve seals, and all that jazz. Well, that's when we found the one head had extremely wasted valve guides. This was all sludged up as well. Cleaned it all up. Got as clean as I can. I'm not pulling the pistons out. I did check a couple of rod and main bearings. They look really good. I am going to put a camshaft in it. And I'm not going to lie to you. The reason I'm putting a cam in is I want something with a little choppy idle. So when you pull into a car show, it's got a little choppy idle to it, and it sounds, you know, everybody likes a choppy idle. This is a 70 motor, so it is a flat top motor. So according to what I can find, this should be a 9-to-1 motor, should be. From what I've got a bunch of old school Chilton manuals, and by the year of this motor could have been in a Trino, it could have been in a Mustang, it could have been in a bunch of junk. Who knows what it came out of originally. But at the end of the day, it was sludged up. It doesn't have a terrible ridge here. The motor didn't smoke. It didn't do anything crazy. But I fear what will happen is with those bad valve guides and it going into a stick shift truck, when you let off the gas, I think you're going to get a poof of smoke. So that's why I decided to find another head. I ended up buying a whole motor. robbed the head off of it, and I've got it over there on the bench. It's all cleaned up. I just need to clean the valves, and I'm just going to lap them back in. Now, somebody's going to say, lapping them in isn't a real valve job. You're correct. It's not. But here's my reasoning behind what I'm doing. This cylinder head that's on here, I've already lapped all the valves, and it's got an excellent margin. They look really good. I'm leaving them. If I go and cut the seats and cut the valves and make that 100% seal, it's going to kill the rings in it eventually. I don't want to kill the rings in it. I want this thing to last a while because I've got so much other stuff that I need to do. I'm into this motor for a little bit more money than I wanted to be, but it is what it is. I'm still ahead of the game at the end of the day, because the other motor gave us a cylinder head, but it gave us a couple other pieces that I need to make this work. I believe this is a low mileage motor. And the reason I believe that is, this thing still had the original timing chain in it, with the plastic gear. Now, some of you old school guys know exactly what I'm talking about by the old nylon gear. You old school guys know exactly what that is. This is 1970. We're at 2023. If this was a high mileage motor, or even had 60 or 70,000 on it, sludged up as it was, that gear wouldn't be here today. That gear would be gone. And the chain was relatively tight. Of course, I'm putting a new chain in it, obviously. But that leads me to believe that this is probably a low mileage engine. For it to be sludged up, and we're also talking about a motor from 1970. I don't know what kind of car it was in. It could have been in Grandmom's car that she went down the street to the grocery store, starts it up, goes down the street, shuts it off, goes in the store, starts it up, comes back, comes home. Short trips were always known to sludge up motors. Crappy oil was known to sludge up motors. And of course, not changing the oil sludges up motors. But there's a lot of other contributing factors to why these motors get sludged up, and did get sludged up back in the day. Let me put you back on the stand so I have two hands. So, brings me part of the point of the video today. The camshaft cost me 160 bucks. So I got 160 bucks in the camshaft. I've got about 150 bucks in gaskets, $300 for the other motor, which was kind of an unexpected spend. We did, however, we did get new water pump. It already had an aluminum 2-barrel intake, or 4-barrel intake for 2-barrel heads. This is a 351 Cleveland with a 2-barrel heads, so it uses a different intake. This is this was actually already on the motor. So we have pretty much everything else we need to put it back together. I did buy a high volume oil pump. I know some guys will say, oh, high volume oil pump is not good. Again, we're taking a motor that's older. We're not doing bearings. We're not doing cam bearings. Everything I'm doing, I have done in the past with other motors, and I've had great success. In fact, the motor that's in my 52 Ford was a motor like this. And that's a lie. That's a lie. Let me back that up. The motor that was in there before this motor was a motor I did this to. And it lasted 2 years before it either broke a piston or broke a ring or something, because it had real bad blow-by. Not the end of the world. So the motor that's in there now was a fresh motor. But the motor prior to that was just a used motor that was dirty. I cleaned it up, resealed it, stuffed it in the truck, got it running. It was in there for 2 years. So I got 2 car show seasons out of it. And when I do some of these car shows, now that I live down here at the beach, my 2 big car shows I like to go to down here are only 10 minutes, 15 minutes away. But when I live north, you're talking an hour and a half, 2-hour ride. Unfortunately, the show that I like up north is now going to be a 3-hour to 4-hour ride. It is what it is. But that motor, the motor that I did what I'm doing to this motor, lasted long enough. Now here's why I do that. Now some guys say, oh, I'm going to build me a motor right out the game, blah, 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 blah. You're going to blow all your wad on the motor. 3 of your biggest expense on bringing some old, decrepit car back to life is engine, transmission, and body work. That's if you want a nice painted car. They're your 3 biggest expense. Now, obviously, we're not painting a wrecker, so I'm not blowing a whole wad of money on that. We're leaving that truck on the rally. But I did have to put floors in it. I did have to put cab supports in it. I bought a new radiator support, new inner fender wells. So I did spend a lot of money. We're doing the Crown Vic front suspension. We still got 6 tires to buy, 6. Dualies in the back, singles in the front. We got to rewire the whole back of the truck. We got carpet to buy. We got interior pieces to buy. The radiator came the other day. I've been buying stuff little at a time for the project so it doesn't kill me when I get to the point of putting the motor in. Already got new clutch, new flywheel. Most of the stuff's here. I own an exhaust machine. I've got tons of mufflers and stuff laying around. I've got pipe. So putting a full exhaust system on a truck's not going to cost me any money. But to a regular guy that doesn't have that kind of equipment, there's a $800-900 expense you got to put out. So I always try to, when I first put something together, if I got a big wad of money, I'll go ahead and build a motor. But since I want other things done to the truck, we're going to build a budget motor. Now that I do have a second Cleveland, this motor should run actually very well. I'm not scared of this motor at all. Bottom end of the bearings and all look really well. Other than it being sludged up, and what we found with the valve guides, this motor is really in good shape, other than just being dirty. But we cleaned it up. We got it all nice and clean. Reseal it. It should be fine. It should live fine. This is not a race car. This is not a race project. It's a tow truck. This thing needs to be able to put it in gear and drive down the road. I sold a Chevelle one time to a buddy of mine. And this is a good example. I sold him a Chevelle, 68 Chevelle. It was actually an original 396 automatic car. No motor, no trans. I sold it with a 402 and no trans. I bought a 402 for my brother. I was going to put this 402 together and put a turbo 350 or 400 in the car and put the car together. I didn't want the car original. I didn't really care. But it was a 68, I believe. 68 Chevelle Super Sport. It was a 396 car, turbo 400, disc brakes, manual steering, column shift with a bench seat, manual brakes. It was a really weird car. And a lot of people that come to look at the car when I had it for sale told me it was a fake. But I had all the paperwork to this car when this car was new. This car was ordered that way. Why somebody ordered it that way, I don't know. Anyway, I sell the car to a buddy of mine. He wants the car. I sell it to him. And I said, you know, he had a Nova that ran and drove, but was just extremely rotted out. It just had a 305 and a turbo 350 in it. I said, man, why don't you just stuff that motor and trans in the Chevelle, get the brakes done. The car was in really good shape, but it had no interior. It did have a little bit of rust in the trunk pan, but that was it. The quarters were nice on this car. But it needed a lot of work. It was going to need wiring harness. It was going to need all the brakes done, exhaust, blah, blah, blah. And I said, man, he's got these big dreams. I'm going to build this big block. I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy these aluminum heads. He's going on and on. In my head, I'm going thousands and thousands of dollars. You don't even have this thing to where it rolls yet. Eventually, he ended up selling the car. And he's building something else, which is actually pretty cool. But I just kept telling him, why don't you just stuff that 305? It runs. The Nova ran and drove. It just was extremely rusty and just clapped out. I'm not putting it in there. It's junk. Put it in there, get the car running, get the brakes done, get the wiring done, get the car to run and drive. You can put your money together instead of blowing thousands of dollars on a set of cylinder heads. Well, there's your carpet, your headliner, your door panels. Nope. He took the front end off the car. The car sat for a long time, and they ended up selling it. I always try to tell guys, if you got a good running motor laying around, it may not be the motor you want, but it gets the car up and running, because guys today just don't realize what it takes to bring this old junk back to life. You got brakes, you got wiring, you got all this other jazz to get the car to the point of inspection. So instead of blowing thousands of dollars on another Cleveland, I'm going to get this one straightened up, do what I'm doing to it for. Now I'm into this a little more money than I wanted to be, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm not upset about it. I'm still way ahead of the curve of if I was going to send it out, board, crank done, heads done. We're talking, I don't even know. I don't even know what prices on this stuff is anymore, because I haven't. The last motor I had board was 6-7 years ago, and that machine shop since closed up. So I really don't know what some guys are getting around here anymore. There's only a couple of machine shops around. One of my subscribers did post the name of somebody. I'm going to look him up and see. But my point is, instead of blowing all your money on a motor, I know that a lot of guys want to build a motor, they want to burn the tires off. I get that. But just put a junkyard motor in the car to get the car going, get all the other stuff done, get it tagged. So that's the big thing. Now in my state, if this thing's mostly stock, well, I shouldn't say mostly, it should be stock, you can get antique tags. With antique tags, the vehicle never goes back to inspection again. I had another friend of mine had a 69 Camaro, and it had a nasty, nasty little 350 in it. He was getting ready to take the car apart to have somebody, the car needed a lot of body work. It was just rough, but it was fast. I mean, it was a fast, nasty car. And he was trying for weeks to get this thing through inspection, and it would not pass emissions. So he come to me one day and he asked me, he said, Ed, what do you think I should do with this thing? He said, I can't get this thing through emissions. And I said, well, and then he tells me the story of once he gets it tagged, he's taken it to the body shop. And I said, whoa, Russ, hold on. They just put a new motor in his mom's Monte Carlo. I said, you still got the 305 out of the Monte? Yeah. I said, dude, take the motor out of Chevelle, or the Camaro. Take the motor out of the Camaro, because you're taking it out anyway, right? Yeah. Stuff that 305 in there, you'll get that thing through inspection. Well, it's really clapped out. I said, it still ran. That car still ran and drove. It just was, was using oil. So that's what they did. He said him and his dad one weekend, they pulled the 350 out. They put the 305 in with the quad jet carburetor, everything. Just greasy, just shoved it in there. And they got the car through inspection. And then off to the body shop it went, and they tore the whole car apart. But in my state, once it's tagged antique, as long as you keep insurance on it, it never goes back. So I try to tell these guys, just put something in it to get it running. Maybe take the time to clean it up, paint it, and detail it so it looks nice. But at least now the car, truck, whatever you're fooling with, at least now it runs and drives and moves under its own power. So you can move it around your garage, your driveway, wherever you're working on it. It runs, it moves. It's a big milestone. When they run and move, it's a big milestone when you're building a project, that it runs and moves. Then you can go ahead and do your brakes, your exhaust, you do your interior, your gauges, all your other bullshit you want to do. You want to get the car painted, truck, whatever, it doesn't matter. Then once you got all that big money out of the way, you can at least drive it and enjoy it for a little bit before you go ahead and put the motor in. Because see, a lot of guys, what I try to explain to them is, you don't realize the nickel dime stuff is what kills you when you're doing a job like this. Now this truck doesn't have that wrecker didn't have a motor in when I bought it, so I had radiator hoses, heater hoses, motor mounts, power steering lines. I gotta get the alternator working because I don't think I'm gonna use this style alternator. I'll probably run a newer style alternator. That stuff eats your pocketbook up alive fast. Brackets for the throttle linkage, plug wires, all that nickel dime stuff nobody thinks about until they go to put it in. They're like, oh man, I just dropped $200 at the parts store. I can't believe this amount of money. Well, yeah, the nickel dime stuff just killed you. But if you already got a motor in there, all the nickel dime stuff's out of the way. So now you can concentrate on buying a set of radical pistons, camshaft, get the heads done, all that. All your nickel dime stuff's there. In theory, when it comes time to put the hopped up motor in, you really should only need oil and antifreeze and some time. I try to explain that to guys. Sometimes it's like this. Sometimes guys listen, but that's exactly why I'm fixing this motor and doing what I'm doing. I mean, we've got everything all cleaned up. Our rockers were straight sludge. I soaked all this stuff. I buy you can buy a gallon can of carburetor cleaner for soaking carburetors, and that's what I do. I soak all the small parts, all these push rods, and then what I do is, what's taking so long with this is I'm washing 90% of this stuff by hand. What I mean by that is, I'll show you. Let's walk over here. I have a regular Safety Clean parts washer. I'll soak all of the small parts in the tank. Then I'll come back and I stand over. Something's always got to fall. Then I'll stand here and scrub parts. Put my rubber gloves on and look like a doctor, getting ready for surgery. I just cleaned that last night. That was a greasy, nasty mess. That's our bell housing we'll be using in the truck. I got the other head. If you remember the last video, this head was a total sludged up disaster. Now it's nice and clean. It's ready to go together. I just need to wire wheel the valves, and then I can lap the valves in. Right now I've got all the valve springs are soaking. This is what I use. So right now all the valve springs, retainers, and keepers are floating in there. They're probably clean. They've been in there since last night, so they're probably clean and ready to go. But this is what takes the longest right here. You know, I work on it. I got customer stuff here I got to do, but I've also, what I do is I dedicate an hour a night to do something to the truck. Either it be clean parts, fabricate something. Every night I try to do something so I'm moving forward with the project. Yesterday, I cleaned the shop up. I cleaned the motor. I got one head on it. So at the end of the night, while I was waiting on the girlfriend to get here, I went ahead and cleaned the rest of the head up, and I went ahead and cleaned this bell housing up. So the bell housing's done. Oh, and I got the timing cover nice and clean too. This was a sludged up mess as well. So this is all clean, ready to go. So like I said, I just kind of keep moving along. So right now, other than, I think I got the oil pan left to clean, which isn't really that bad. Looks like the pan had been off. It had a Felpro gasket on, so at some point the pan had been off. And I got to soak the oil pump screen. That's the last thing I want to set that. Once I get the valve springs out, I'm going to soak the oil pump pickup. I'm going to take it off and soak it in there. And I just use the parts washer, wire wheel on the cordless drill, and just scrub away. It's messy. I don't have a hot tank. I really, really wish I did. I don't really have the room for it. My next big purchase I want to buy here is I call it a burn table. Some people call it so basically it's got a plasma cutter. It's got a table, and it's hooked to your computer, and it'll cut out whatever you program the computer to do. Laser table, whatever you want to call it. But that's my next big purchase I want to buy. I got to rearrange a garage. I'm going to I'm probably going to move my toolbox to the other side of the shop, and I think I'm going to put it here. And the reason I think I'm going to put it here is this whole side of the shop is open. I got 220 right there. My compressor's over there, so I need 220. And I'm actually going to run an outlet over here because that big red guy there, that's the exhaust machine. That's the pipe bender. It runs off of 220, so I think the burn table is going to go here. Eventually. I haven't bought it yet. So I don't have much room to have a hot tank. I'd love to have a hot tank, because then you just throw the parts in there, turn the timer on, turn the heater on, walk away from it, and it does the work for you. But unfortunately, I got to do it old school, which is how we used to do it back in the 80s when I was a kid. Stan, I must have stood in front of one of these for hours. And this one I own, and you can see it's a hot mess. I put plastic on the wall because I was making a hot mess. But anyway, back to the Cleveland. We got this head cleaned up. It's ready to go back together. Like I said, I just need to wire wheel the valves, and then we'll lap them in, and that's it. That's all we're doing to that head. That's all we did to the other head, and that's all we're doing to that. So maybe you guys got something out of that today. I just wanted to give you guys a little update on what's going on. We did get the crown. I keep saying we, but there's no bird or mouse on my shoulder, so it's me. Did get the Crown Vic in a couple nights ago. I haven't done any more with it. I've had some stuff to do around here the last couple weeks, and today Mother is coming into town, so Mother wants to come to the house. So we're probably not going to get a whole lot done. I got to go out there and cut the grass and clean a couple things up, and yeah, Mother is coming in. So anyway, look, holla at your boy. Keeps it reals. Catch me on the next one.